Hello, my name is Tech Sergeant Wolfe, and I'm going to talk about organizational culture. Organizational culture can be defined as the underlying beliefs, assumptions, values, and weight of interacting that contribute to the unique social and psychological environment of an organization. Before I dive into organizational culture, I'm going to talk about myself. As I've stated before, I am dual-hatted. I work as a CSS here at Langley Air Force Base, and I also am a section supervisor for career development at the 413th at Warner Robins Air Force Base. Although I have the pleasure of being a part of both, it is very kind of hard because you have to learn two different norms of or understanding two different norms of an organization, their social interactions, their ways of communication, their customs and courtesies. And that's a big one, coming from working active duty every day and then the laxness as in working at a reserve base. What I can say about the organizational cultures that I have realized, they are very, very similar. And if I can sum it up to one word, I will use complacent. Complacent in the aspect of it's an older workforce versus the newer, fresher faces and the new leadership and the new changes that are coming in and out. When I got here at Langley Air Force Base about 2 years ago, I was brought to stand up the CSS, and half of the staff was a total of 60, and half of the staff were retired officers or they've been in the civil service for about 15 years plus. And with the 413th, when I got there, it's a very small organization. One senior that's been there 15, almost 20 years. Same thing with the chief. The commander is about 5 years in, and then it's a new ops superintendent, and then it's new section supervisors that have came in. But with that complacency, it's been the resistance of the culture shift. It's that they're not wanting to do that. They're not wanting to have that change. If I can give some examples of being at A6, I took over a member who was retiring, and he was, in the lack of better terms, checked out, and he dropped me his books and he said, "Hey, Sergeant Wolfe, I'm done. Here you go." And it took me looking over his books and figuring out what I needed to do and things like that. And I kind of went to my chain of command and I'm like, why are we double working, and why? And she kind of looked and she was like, no one's ever asked us why. It's just always been the way that it's been. And she was like, but you have to remember that if you're working from the bottom up, you have to remember how the top works. And she helped me understand that, like, we can create change and implement it, but it isn't going to work for the division. That we can take something from someone and we can work that up the chain and see what the benefits are, and we also have to implement that for the director, and so he has to implement and force down those changes, because if we can be honest, in units and environments, the change is not implemented from the top, but we're trying so much to create a process from the bottom. And so as a supervisor, if I can talk, that's where we come in, that we bridge that gap and we say, hey, and we back those, and we have those uncomfortable conversations for our airmen, or we even have those uncomfortable conversations with our airmen without the unconscious bias, and we're learning how to trust, and they're learning that we're there for them, and they have that free will to come and talk. If I can give an example on the 413th side, is that I came in and I'm a section supervisor, and I have a senior airman who is she's a section chief, and she's an art, and so she works there during the week, and I don't want to come take anything from her because I'm only there on the weekends. However, when I look at the work and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, why are we working so much? And what can we disseminate? And she was so resistant to that culture shift, and she was like, hey, we can't do this, we because that's not how it's been taught. But just because it hasn't been taught that way, can you give me a why? And that's what I'm trying to teach my airmen, is that why is it that way? Can you back up what that backing is, so we can have that going forward, so I can take that to my supervisor for you, and I can say, hey, this is how it's been, this is how it should be, and we can work on those. So as a total, as a total force, it's going to take some time to actually shift the culture, because I think that I've been to a couple of bases and that culture is there. Can't talk for all bases, only the bases that I've been. However, it's going to take, mentoring as a leader. It's going to take, providing those opportunities to have those, conflict resolution conversations, creating those trusting environments, so we feel as though we're heard from the top down, but also our airmen from the bottom up can hear us as well. And so as a supervisor, that is our main position and main goal. If we talk about that, we have to remember that there are healthy elements and there are also unhealthy elements that comes with that, as in bridging that gap, because you get in the culture, no matter where you get the gossip and the rumor mills and the people who are checked out, who don't want to work, and the blocks of conversation. But we have to learn how to overcome those and create those healthy elements. So it's an open dialogue conversation. We're continuing to strive and push for teamwork. We're continuing to not only hear their problems, but we're continuing to act on their problems and act on their behalf. It's going to take it's going to take some time, and I can say, like, at A6 that I've maybe put a dent in it, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But I will say that from my supervisor having my back and backing me and going up the chain and talking to that director, he's using those diversity and inclusion things that I've wanted and asked the whys about. He's changing processes, and we're learning because he actually took heed to that fresh face and he wants that. And so now they're doing things for the millennials, and they're not trying to be so set in their ways. But that comes with the territory, and it's that cultural shift that we have to be able to adapt with from time to time. And the same thing I can say with the 413th. When I first got there a couple months ago, my airman was very resistant to the cultural change. However, she's seeing the pluses and the benefits that it can happen, and the gap and the relationship that I'm trying to build with her to say, hey, I trust you and I back you, and I want to be able to relate to you and understand, so you understand that I am not trying to create any biases, but I'm trying to give you that work. I'm trying to complete the mission with you and for you. So we as supervisors have a very, very, especially as tech sergeants, we have a very heavy load, as in that great work that we're trying to push, but also having those relationships and having those difficult conversations, either from the top down when it comes to us, or from the bottom up, so we can have those trusting airmen to us. Thank you.